We are back. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, here with the always lovely and talented Andrea Kay, the always incredible Urban Miaris, who gets more incredible with all the stuff that he takes on every day.
I know, not to mention the fact that, our next guest's like, oh, I know who Urban is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like a local legend.
Well, I have my picture in all the ladies' rooms in San Diego. I pay big bucks
I
for
have
that.
to tell you that jealousy will get you everywhere. Eve sent me a text this morning, it said, well, when you go in, give Urban a hug for me, right? I says, nope, Eve, you snooze, you lose.
That's
you got to
right.
do it yourself.
Yeah.
So,
that's right.
Anyway.
No,
hey,
I'm not going to take a hug from you, but go ahead.
That's good. That's exactly
good
why
to
I
know.
said it. So anyway, we have our next guest with us. Welcome, Vicki Garcia from Veteran Entrepreneurs Today.
Hi,
Welcome.
nice to be here. Thank you.
Great. So tell us what does Veteran Entrepreneurs Today do?
Well, what we do is we help veterans, we support veterans to become business owners. That's the very shortest version. Okay. But we do it in a very intensive way that it's not for a big, broad brush quantity of veterans. It's small groups of think tanks where veterans share their business ideas, their challenges. They set goals and they come back and they account to each other to make sure that they've taken the steps to meet those goals. So that's what we do, is we help people to find an alternative to employment, because everybody's out there looking for a job and it's pretty tough.
It is. And I love, for me, I love the entrepreneurial spirit. And I'm sure that it's probably a small percentage of veterans that look to transition. The large percentage transition to employment. The small percentage transition to self-employment. Is that correct?
Well, the VA tells us that 25% of veterans want to own their own businesses, but it's one thing to have a dream, and it's another thing to take action and actually make that start and make it happen and manage it. So. There's a lot of people who want to own businesses. They just are laboring under some misconceptions.
Right. So tell me what you do with the veterans that helps them out. I'm thinking, what does this think tank look like?
Well, it's over a period of 12 weeks, meeting one night a week on Mondays at this point. And we bring them together and we bring in an expert from the community on either management, human resources, marketing. There's a whole month of marketing and a whole month of financial management where an expert comes in and talks to them, answers questions, gives them a presentation, expert goes away. Then the group gets together and they share what they learned, what their challenges are. They share what they've accomplished in the last week. And at the end, we have a 2-part form that they fill out, where they list what their goal is for the next week and what their action steps will be. Then in between, we call them and we say, how's it going? Are you having any stumbling blocks? Is there anything we can help you with? Then at the end of that, they come back the next week and they compare notes and they talk about what they've accomplished. And, it's they kind of have a support system and a cheering squad. They also have accountability. No excuses. You have to accomplish something during this week. So that's it in a nutshell. The group experience is much more satisfying and supportive than, let's say, taking a workshop or trying to learn this stuff online. This is real hands-on, in the trenches kind of information that they get.
Are there particular types of businesses that you tend to support more with your program?
It doesn't matter, but we have one small manufacturer. We have someone that owns a franchise, actually, that's a sports franchise. We have one of the people is she makes artisan pickles.
Oh, awesome.
And we have a financial planner. So we have a little bit of everything in there. We have a guy that goes around to events with a mobile truck that is filled with video games. And pinball, and he goes from party to party. So just kind of all kinds of different things. You don't have to invent Qualcomm. You can do this with a kiosk in the mall, or you can do it with artisan pickles in your kitchen, or it's got to be something that you love and you're willing to get behind.
I love it. I go back, and I think Urban probably does too. We go back to think about the time when we got out of the service. Okay. Mm-hmm. And there were so little veterans or military transition services out there, anything to help us out. They said, here, you got the GI Bill. go use it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's very limited.
And that was it. And now we see all this different support systems coming out. And I just think it's fabulous what you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, the issue is, though, that there's a lot of things popping up. And I work real closely with V.E.T, a fellow named Maurice Wilson.
We've had him on the show.
Yeah.
Absolutely fabulous.
He has
guy.
an organization called the National Veterans Transition Services. V.E.T is under that, and we're a sister program under the same thing, so we work closely with them. And V.E.T is very good at helping veterans to transition to the civilian culture and understand how it works, that it's not, the problem is almost the world is your oyster and you have all these choices. And V.E.T helps to orient them to the reality of what's going on in the real world and all the opportunities that are available, but how you have to make very careful decisions.
One of the things in the transitioning from military into civilian life, and they focus mainly on employment, veterans come out and they say, well, what can I do? I was 11 Bravo infantry as an example, or I was a machinist and I don't want to be a machinist anymore. What skills do I have? They really don't know how to use the skills that they've been trained in into the employment or self-employment arena. They do a pretty good job on job transitioning where they help them find employment. But with business, there's no educational programs, and that's why these veteran entrepreneur programs are so needed to show them the skills, latent skills they don't even know they have.
Yeah, they make great entrepreneurs because they're used to working on a team or on their own. They're used to being self-directed. They're used to not pussyfooting around, that they need to fulfill the mission. They're good at it. And what we've also found, and there's lots of literature out there, that veterans like to be in the company of other veterans who understand their concerns and their issues. And so that's why we feel it's best to do these with all veterans in the group, so that they all have that.
The camaraderie has to be there. That's what we're based on.
Right.
Interesting. You're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business here on KCBQ, streaming live at AM1170theanswer.com. Give us a tweet at CloseUpSD. Email me at barry@closeupsandiego.com or find our page on Facebook. Want to hear from you? I'm your host, Barry Waxler, here with Andrea Kay, Urban Miaris, and our guest is Vicki Garcia from Veteran Entrepreneurs Today. So tell me, how did you get started in this? What was the impetus to get you started in helping veterans with entrepreneurial ventures?
Well, I've been in business as a marketing firm called Marketing Impressions for 30 years. So I've worked almost exclusively with micro businesses and small businesses. I have an association with a woman named Barbara Eldridge, and Barbara owns Mind Masters, which is the model that we're using for this. And I'm used to doing marketing for small businesses and supporting them in my business. And where you're driving around, you hear so much about veterans and how many things that they need. And I called Barbara and I said, we got to do something for veterans. So we created this program, and we've been running it for about 18 months. And it just is because I want to give back to the community, and I wanted to do something for veterans from the private sector. And one of the things that's been wonderful is we have lots of small business owners who are more than willing to come in and mentor folks and give their expertise without no expectation with anything in return. So
put me on that list.
Okay.
I was just going to say, that sounds right up your alley, Boss Daddy. That's so what you do.
Well, what's interesting is that we can go back, I think it was just last week. Didn't Mike Lindsay was on last week with us, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what we tried last week was something a little bit different than we normally do, where Mike is a veteran. He got out of, he retired, April 1, I think it was. So just a couple months ago. And, he's been looking for something very specific in the work field. And we put him on to basically put his resume on air with us and see where it went. So we'll be following up in the weeks to come to see how that worked. So my thought is it would be even a better match for our show to take some of your, let's call it some of your graduates, and those that are really serious about making an entrepreneurial jump. Okay, bring them on.
Oh, I'd love to do that. They'd love to do it. I mean, there's some very, very good people in there and who are very dedicated for their businesses and have every chance of succeeding. People say that it's hard to start a small business, hard to succeed, but it really isn't if you put your, shoulder to the wheel
Well, the veterans have that work ethic that you just don't get naturally, outside the military. So,
well, they're fearless and courageous. You kind of have to have that little bit of that fearlessness to be a business owner, because you're the one. Because it's really on you, the success or failure. You're not working for somebody else. You got to make the decisions, and you're accountable.
Yeah, and if you don't do what you're supposed to do, you're not going to make any money, and you're not going to survive. So,
that's right.
It beats knocking on doors and looking for a job. To me, anything beats that.
I know. Is that why you went into business for yourself?
Well, why I actually went into business for myself is not a G-rated show.
Then make up a really good G-rated story now.
So I promised myself when I was 22 I would never, ever work for anybody else ever again, after my last employer swung a baseball bat over my head. So
there you go. See?
Yeah.
Said not going to do it.
You'll never go back. Once you've been an entrepreneur, you'll never go back.
And when I came back from Vietnam, I went into business because I had no other options.
That's a big one. That's why I went into business.
Yeah, there was no other options, and I truly wanted to go into business. But, the psychology of veterans is so diverse from the civilian population, and then, of course, there's different segments within the veteran population. From officers to non-coms to the professions they had or the experiences they've had in the military. So it's quite a different field, and too many organizations that have been around for a long time, like government agencies, are used to doing it the analytical or clinical way, and they don't take into account the veteran. And that's where I think they lose a lot.
Yeah.
Well, they're trying to catch up, I think, a little bit slowly, because when you have this enormous a population of veterans that are coming out, it really forces you to take count of what you're doing and do it in a different way. You've got a younger group that's coming out, and they're not going to settle for the same old that the government hands them. So I think it's really it's catching up. Let me just say that if you're interested in applying for this program, and we don't take everybody, so you should apply and give us a chance to get to know you. You can go to veteranentrepreneurstoday.org. You can go also to nvtsi.org. That's the one that Reboot is under, or you can just Google Reboot. And Reboot has classes that are wonderful. I think he may have a waiting list for them, but that's on the side of getting reinculturated and really finding out what's out there, and maybe a little bit of support for looking for a job. So it's out there for you. You just got to get on the computer and Google all this, and you'll find it.
Now, are you looking for recent veterans or veterans from maybe going as far back as Vietnam and Korea?
Well, really, we're looking for post 9/11 veterans. Mm-hmm. But we have a couple of people in our group that are not post 9/11 veterans. One lady has been out for a little while, and what she does is she helps people prepare small claims court actions, and then when they win, she helps them get the money. So I think that's pretty cool. And she's been around for a while.
Great idea.
That is a great idea. Now, do they need to already have a business plan or a concept in mind before they come to you?
They don't have to have a plan, but they do have to have made a few steps towards starting their business. We don't want to take you if you're just a dreamer. You have to have made a few commitments, bought that truck, gotten a business license, maybe had a logo, taken a couple classes, but we need to talk to you and find out what's your chance of success, so we can, like I said, we don't take just everybody, and we're not taking dreamers.
Is there some kind of a test or some kind of a formula that you look at? Is there anything formal that says this person is more likely to be successful as an entrepreneur versus this person should be employed by another company?
Well, we know we've worked with entrepreneurs for so long that we just kind of know it when we see it. If you have support at home, you have a spouse who's behind you, that's a big help. If you have a parent that's owned a business, if you're entrepreneurial, if you have that kind of mentality, like you say, you don't want to work for somebody anymore, it's a lot of it depends on you. It depends on the steps that you've taken. So we've been working with entrepreneurs for so long, they pass the smell test or they don't.
So did you sample the pickles before you decided to take her on?
Yeah, man, that girl's got some pickles. She's in some restaurants.
Is she really?
Yeah, she's
awesome.
About half of the people in our group are female. So
love that.
That's pretty good too. So we like that. So to answer Urban's question, I mean, if you showed up and you're a World War II vet and you really want to, you've got a business and you're running it, we're going to take you. we're not going to discriminate. But we found out that most of the folks that are coming to us are post 9/11. So they're more entrepreneurial to begin with. Their expectation is not
younger, more group, ambitious and more aggressive.
More ambitious, and they here's what we tell them, and they agree: you're never going to get rich working for somebody else.
That's so true. That's true. You've proven that too, right, Boss Day?
Yeah. Well, I never had the chance to work for anybody else, so but it's definitely the entrepreneurial spirit. Takes the roof off of what you can do.
Yeah. Well, I work for somebody else.
Yeah, I got fired. Joanne, and you married her.
I was just going to say his wife.
I got fired. That was the U.S. Army.
Yeah. Get out of here, Urban.
Yeah. They didn't want me anymore.
Yeah. Well, we're starting to run short on time. Tell our listeners one more time how they find out more about you.
You can go to veteranentrepreneurstoday.org or nvtsi.org. That's for the reboot classes.
Well, I'll conclude this particular segment by saying that, I've had the wonderful experience on, I think, 3 occasions to work with Maurice Wilson from Reboot, and I think he is a fabulous guy, highly recommended. And just the fact alone that you're working with Maurice tells me great things are going on.
Thanks. Yeah, okay? we feel very lucky to be in his company.
So, well, I'm sure that it's probably goes both ways. So, great. Well, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Great. This is Close Up on San Diego Business here on KCBQ, streaming live at AM1170theanswer.com. Send us a tweet at CloseUpSD or just find our page on Facebook. You can always email me at barry@closeupsandiego.com. Let me know what you think. I'm your host, Barry Waxler. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.